So, if you all remember, a few weeks back I put out a community post asking all of you who you would want to see rank 3 gameplay of, and Odin won that vote. Not really surprised because my Odin video is still the second most viewed video on my channel. So people clearly love Odin and want to see the rank 3 gameplay, but I still feel like he's underrated. Most people don't talk about him, and I still don't see that many people ranking him up when I have him ranked up on both of my accounts. And I use him everywhere. He's good in Battlegrounds, he's good in short content, he's good in long content, he's good in Alliance War. He's literally good everywhere. The only place where he isn't good at is on defense. But he does have a big health pool, and the armor up does make him kinda tanky, so he can still stall on defense. But now obviously he's not good on defense, but he's literally good in every other aspect of the game. And some people think he's still only good for pre-fights, which is just insane to me. He is honestly one of the best cosmics in game. Maybe top 5 cosmic, maybe definitely top 5 cosmic 7 stars. That's for sure. Anyway, we're fighting a rank 3 onslaught here, and Odin is metal, so there's no way he can shrug the neuro shocks. But I mean, Odin doesn't have the highest crit chance. He has like a pretty decent crit chance, especially with the Miss Marvel relic. But since you don't crit a ton with Odin, you're not going to get that many neuro shocks applied to you. And he's really tanky, so you can take a lot of blocked hits with Odin without taking much block damage. So he's a pretty good onslaught counter. He nukes onslaught really well, especially if you get a nice SB2 crit. But the nice thing about Odin is half of his damage on the SB2 comes from burst damage, so you do get a lot of extra damage when you crit on your SB2, but even if you don't crit, you'll still get plenty of burst damage. So his SB2 still hits really hard, crit or not. We're fighting a rank 3 Weapon X here. We don't have any way to counter his regen. What we're going to have to do is bait Weapon X into his berserk mode, wait that out, and then we have a short window of time to nuke Weapon X before he goes into his next berserk mode, so he doesn't regen all of our damage. He won't regen the burst damage on the SB2, but a lot of Odin's damage comes from basic attack hits as well, so you don't want him having that regen because it does slow the match down. You do need insane damage to nuke Weapon X in between his berserk modes, but luckily Odin has that. We're fighting a rank 2 Penny here. She fell off for a while, but since she's been available as a 7 star, she's come back a bit. I've definitely fought a few Penny Parkers. She's definitely a lot more common in BGs nowadays. And Odin's a great counter. It only takes 2 or 3 combos into Penny's block with Odin to drop her shield because of that massive fury which Odin has, and then you're free to just nuke Penny with a single SB2, not even necessary to go for an SB1 in that fight. Next fight we got a 7 star rank 2 Bullseye, and you wouldn't think Odin is good for this fight because he isn't bleed immune, but Odin has a true strike off his SB1, and you can keep this true strike up the entire match. Odin's buffs will be paused indefinitely when you are close to your opponent, and the true strike is a buff, so you can keep it paused the entire match. All your buffs will repause with an SB2 as well, as long as your Odin force is active. That's why you see me doing heavy attacks with Odin a lot, to activate my Odin force. But yeah, we nuked that Bullseye. That's a really reliable fight. You can always kill Bullseye before he's able to throw a single special attack, as long as you don't get mean AI that throws special attacks into your block. Next fight we have a Rintrah, and the reason I know Odin can do this Rintrah fight because you wouldn't expect him to be able to. Even I didn't expect him to be able to do this fight, but I did it on stream once because I was backed in a corner, I had no one else to use, and I knew Odin starts out with a fury buff, so I knew Rintrah would not be able to neutralize that. He does unfortunately neutralize any other buff we gain, so we can't gain the energize off our heavy attack, we can't gain the buffs off our SB1, etc. So the play in this match is just spam our heavy attacks and use our SB2, and we are somehow able to get this fight down. It is reliable because I've done it a few times now. I'd show the original stream clip where I do this fight if I could, but I can't find it. I did look on a few of my streams, just skipped through them, and I couldn't find the fight, so I just recreated it. For anyone wondering, when I make a showcase, I'm normally doing friendlies against either my alternative account or I've got people helping me. This is just so I can show off what the champions can do. I do also upload fights up in Gladiator Circuit, up in Celestial. If you want to check them out, they're on my channel. I just upload random fights sometimes. But for showcases, I normally just do friendlies because it would take days, weeks, maybe even months to get a showcase made on a specific champ if I was trying to get all these fights in Gladiator Circuit, because a lot of the time people don't place the champions you need, you don't draft the champions you need, etc. So it's just easier to showcase what a champ can do in friendlies. But that was a rank 3 Punisher 2099 we were fighting. He is supposed to have massive block damage, and he does, but Odin is a tank with that armor up, so he's a great counter to 7-star Punisher 2099, who's going to be a pretty common defender, and he is a very strong defender with that unavoidable block damage. Odin is just a tank, so it doesn't affect him too much. That was in the Gladiator Circuit node, where your opponent gains loads of armor up buffs, and you might be thinking, why does Odin work in that node? It's because of his True Strike. Most of you know that True Strike counters evade and auto block, but it also lets you ignore all armor on your opponent. So he is a secret weapon for the current Gladiator Circuit node. I'm probably telling you all this a bit late because the season is nearly over. But yeah, Odin was great for this season in Battlegrounds, and he will work great next meta. The meta after next meta is probably going to be crit me with your best shot. He won't be the best for that because a lot of his damage is burst damage on the SB2, but he won't be terrible either. He will definitely be able to do some fast fights, but he just won't be the absolute best option. We nuked that Yondu, that was like 800k health, but we did have Foresight helping our damage there. A lot of nodes do have Foresight nowadays though. Now we're fighting the 7.3 Kang, I think it is, and the way this fight works is the number under Kang's icon is the special attack you have to use. So as you can see, there's a 2 under Kang right now, so that means I have to use a special 2. When there's a 1, I have to use special 1. When there's a 0, I have to be at no power when that timer ends, and of course when there's a 3, I have to use my special 3. Odin is really good for this fight. It just makes him very easy to ramp up because you're gaining loads of power, so that means you're going to be able to get to your SB3, which I haven't talked about yet because you don't want to go for the SB3 in Battlegrounds or even short fights. Even around 800k health fights, the SB3 is just not necessary. But in longer fights like Necro, like Labyrinth, or even big boss fights like this Kang, going for the SB3 is definitely worth it because it lets you double up your buffs, which will give you an extra aptitude buff and an extra fury buff, and of course this will increase your damage. It's definitely not necessary or needed to go for this in fights under a million HP, I'd say though, because it's just overkill. Odin's SB2 or SB1 then SB2 rotation does plenty of damage. The SB3 is just way overkill in fights that aren't long content like Necro, like Abyss, etc. I'm sure most of you know this, but the way Odin's SB2 works is it deals burst damage for each unique buff on yourself. The best relic for Odin, in my opinion, is the Miss Marvel relic. A lot of people say it's the 4 relic, but the Miss Marvel relic grants you a precision buff. So on top of this being a extra buff for your SB2, the fact that it's a precision gives you a higher chance to land critical hits, which is actually really nice for Odin. He has that massive fury, so his basic attacks, they do hit pretty hard when he does crit. So yeah, in my opinion, the Miss Marvel relic is definitely the way to go. Honestly, I like that Odin won the vote, and I'm definitely not mad at it, but I think it would have been a tiny bit cooler if someone like Dragon Man, who who I haven't already made a video on before, won that vote. I do have a generic 2 to 3 gem, so I can rank 3 someone else on my mini account, but I'm saving that for one of the Crucible champs. It's either going to be White Magneto or Man Thing, but it's probably going to be White Mags because I used to use White Mags a lot back in the Battlegrounds beta. Used to use him for Kingpins and Cogs, and he was always really good. He was just very crit reliant. When he crit, he could finish fights in around 40-50 seconds, but when he doesn't crit, very slow champ, similar to Gambit, I guess, but White Mags is cooler than Gambit. He has a much more fun playstyle, and his utility against metal champs is really strong. So I think I'm going to pick White Magneto on the mini account from the Crucible selector and rank 3 him. I was getting hit there on purpose, by the way, because in the final phase of this Kang fight, whoever gets to an Esprit 3 first between you and Kang wins the fight basically, and if you get hit you gain more power than if you're hitting them. So yeah, I just decided to get hit a bunch there, get myself to the SB3, and since Odin is a tank, that worked out well for us. Next fight is this Eternity of Pain Bishop. When you stand close to him you gain power, when you fall away from him you lose power. You know the deal. If you're wondering why this video is so long, 30 minutes is the longest showcase I've ever done. It was by complete accident. I did not mean for this showcase to be so long, but I was just doing random fights with Odin, and when I put all the videos into the editing software, there was like 50 minutes worth of videos. I had to cut a lot of fights out of this. There's definitely enough for a part 2 if you want to see that. But I'm sure this video alone will convince you all to finally rank your Odins. I've literally got gameplay from everywhere in the game in this video. So if this doesn't convince you that Odin is a top 5 cosmic and a worthy rank 3 candidate, I don't know what will, because that's my opinion on him. I genuinely think he's one of the most underrated and undervalued champs in game. One problem Odin does have though is the same problem Omega Red has. The striker puts you out of range, so Odin's buffs stay paused on him when he's close to his opponent, but the striker puts you out of range, so his buffs will be unpaused whilst you're using the striker. This is the same problem with Omega Red. When he's close to his opponent, his spores won't drop off, but when you use the striker, that puts you out of range and it will make your spores drop off. I wish Kabam would change that. It'd be a really nice change. Definitely wouldn't be OP for champions like Odin or Omega Red or any other champion that needs to stay in range of their opponent. It's really annoying. It makes you not want to use strikers with these champs, but the striker for Odin is really useful because it gives him an extra buff and extra critical rating. So yeah, please change that. Grandmaster Gauntlet Modok here, he can be pretty annoying to fight. When you parry this guy, you will get a disorient on yourself. This will lower your block proficiency and it will make your parries fail. And if you can't parry Modok, he becomes really annoying to fight, because how else are you going to get around that auto block? Well, Odin has that True Strike, what lasts the entire match, so Modok is a potato to him. True Strike is such a strong piece of utility. The fact that it counters evade and auto block just lets him counter so many different defenders, like Bullseye, like Nightcrawler, like Modok. There's so many defenders and nodes that True Strike counters. Definitely one of the strongest buffs in the game if you ask me. Going up against Gauntlet Nightcrawler here, and I did fight all the evaders in the Gauntlet with Odin. I got Spider-Ham, I got Spider-Gwen, and I got Nightcrawler. I'm only showing Nightcrawler though. Spider-Ham I'm leaving off the video because it was a very long fight, because of Ham having the increased combat power rate. You know what Ham is like, he doesn't throw his specials half the time, so that was just a very long and boring fight. And who the hell uses Spider-Gwen? So there's no point showing that. People actually use Nightcrawler, people actually put Nightcrawler on Battlegrounds defense, so definitely worth showing this fight in my opinion. It's very easy to keep your True Strike paused against Nightcrawler. He has short special attacks, so it's really easy to stay close to him. Yeah, Odin's just a very hard counter to Nightcrawler, which is what you want nowadays, because it's basically impossible to switch Nightcrawler's stances anymore. I don't think anyone can do it reliably. Back to Battlegrounds now. There's 11 different Battlegrounds fights, and I'm leaving plenty of fights off the video, so believe me when I say Odin is extremely versatile. He's pretty fast. He's just really underrated for Battlegrounds and every other aspect of the game. Our SB2 didn't crit here. If it did crit, I'm pretty certain that just would have wiped out Dust, but we got a bit unlucky and we didn't get a crit. So we got to deal with Dust being passive, not dashing at us. We finally got the intercept to finish her off. Even with passive AI, even with us getting bad crit RNG and our SB2 not critting, we still finished that Dust off in 38 seconds. That is a nuke. If that was a rank 3 Dust, it would only take around 5 to 10 seconds longer. And Dust is a really tanky defender. She has a decent health pool, and the Sandstorm debuffs lower your damage through inequity. Speaking about inequity, here we have a Photon who is always reducing your damage because she's constantly applying debuffs to you. So inequity plays a big part in this match, but Odin doesn't care. We didn't even go for an SB1 in that fight. Straight to SB2. Once again, got unlucky and didn't get a crit, but that single SB2 still wiped out Photon, even with inequity affecting us, lowering our damage. Even with bad crit RNG, Odin is still nuking fights in a single SB2. So I don't understand how people are sleeping on this guy. So with Maestro here, him having a big health pool actually kind of helps us out, because as most of you know, Maestro can only glance your basic attack hits. He can't glance your special attacks. So we really have to rely on our SB2 doing most of the work in this matchup. And Odin's special 2 burst damage will not only do increased damage for each unique buff on you, but it scales up with more damage depending on how much health your opponent has. Maestro has one of the biggest health pools in game, so our SB2 will be doing even more burst damage than it normally does. Speaking of champions with some of the biggest health pools in game, we have a rank 3, yes, a rank 3 Sasquatch here, running 5 out of 5 MD as well. Odin really has no business doing this fight, but thanks to Sasquatch having the biggest health pool in game, our SB2s are just going to be slapping as hard as they possibly can. I really don't understand why people don't play Odin. I just can't get it through my head. He's a really powerful champ. He has nice utility. He has really good damage. He's easy to play as well. Can someone please explain to me why people don't use this champ? Yes, there are better cosmics, like CGR of course, like Hulkling, but they're not available as 7 stars. Odin is probably the best cosmic 7-star attacker. He's obviously not the best 7-star cosmic in general, because there's Serpent, and Serpent is just the worst defender in game, the most stupidest defender in game. Please nerf Serpent. But that's besides the point. Serpent is not a great attacker. He's okay, but he does not even come close to Odin. The only champion in the cosmic class that comes close to Odin on attack is Venom. And honestly, I find Odin's utility more useful. I find Odin's damage more reliable. I like Odin more than Venom. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but I genuinely think Odin is better than Venom. There is superior Iron Man though in the 7-star pool, and he is kind of cracked. I can't say Odin is better than Soup. I think Soup has the edge on Odin. So I'm going to say Odin is the second best cosmic 7-star attacker there is. I know that's a controversial statement, but look at the gameplay in this video. Look at all the fights he can do. I have proved that Odin is good literally everywhere in game. It's crazy that he's not more popular. I don't see why he isn't. I can't get it through my head why people don't use this guy. Back to some story content here though. I've started putting a lot more story content in my showcases recently, and that's because I have realised not everyone is a Battlegrounds fiend like me, and there's a lot of people who don't even play Battlegrounds. So that's why there's a lot more story content in my videos recently. Let me know what you think of that. Let me know if you prefer the Battlegrounds only showcases or the showcases where I show off the champion in every aspect of the game. I'm pretty sure people prefer the second option, but I'm interested to hear because maybe I'm wrong and maybe I've got the wrong impression. We got down that 800k Psycho Man in a minute. That has a really annoying node. If you don't have a certain amount of buffs on yourself, Psycho Man will auto block you, and when he auto blocks you, he will apply a concussion debuff to you, and this will stop all your abilities like parry, like gaining buffs. Basically any ability that would trigger concussion stops it. So it's a really annoying node, but thanks to Odin having extremely easy access to buffs, he makes that fight very easy. Odin is great for any fights where you need buffs, buffed up, pumping iron, etc. You get the idea. Odin is just the GOAT for that kind of stuff because he starts out with 3 buffs as it is. You can get another buff from using your heavy attack. You can get 6 energized buffs from using your heavy attack 4 times in a row. You can get 2 extra buffs off your SB1. You can double up all your buffs off the SB2 and gain a extra buff. So basically, Odin is just full to the brim with buffs. It's a really nice piece of utility that he has. Not many champions can gain many buffs as easily or as many buffs as he can. Now, if you saw that SB2 and you only saw the big yellow number, the big 50k crit, that was not all of the damage. If you saw the burst damage of that SB2, that is 440k. There it is again, 410k per SB2. That's insane. The reason we're doing 400k SB2s is because, like I mentioned earlier, Odin's SB2 burst damage scales up with the opponent's health. Labyrinth opponents have 3 million health, so our SB2 is going to be doing maximum damage. Another 410k special 2. That's more than 410k actually, because we have to add on the actual SB2 hit, which is another 50k. So it's actually around a 460k special attack. Actually, I forgot the SB2 has 2 hits, so that's 250k hits plus 410k. That's over 500k special 2s. That is ridiculous. Doesn't matter that we can only do it in long form content, it's still ridiculous damage. Next fight we have a necro fight, and Odin is honestly a great option for necro. He can solo many fights. In necro, I'm only going to be showing one because otherwise we would be here all day, because necro fights, they're like 9 million HP. They take about 5 minutes each, even with the highest of damage output champions. So showing more than one is just overkill. You get the idea of the damage from just one necro fight. I chose Sauron because this Sauron has a chance to evade your medium attacks. So this just shows off Odin's True Strike utility yet again, coming in handy. One of the best buffs in game, like I mentioned earlier. I do have some synergies with me, but Odin's synergies don't really help him out too much. The Destroyer synergy is actually really nice because that will give you a placebo buff on your SB2, and that's just extra damage. But unfortunately, I don't have a Destroyer on this account at all, so I cannot use that synergy. Bit of an L, but clearly he doesn't need it. Clearly the Destroyer synergy is just overkill. One thing that has always confused me about Odin though, you can't use Odin's pre-fights on himself. They don't work for himself, which is really stupid. I don't think it would make him too OP. Yes, it would increase his SB2 burst damage, which is already pretty wild, but I mean, come on, it wouldn't make him too OP. They didn't need to stop him from applying the buffs to himself. I think they should change that, to be honest. That would be a really cool change. Another nice little thing about Odin, he does not need to be duped at all. His dupe is pretty useless. Basically, there are certain buffs that if the opponent has them, when you knock them down with a heavy attack, you will gain a duplicate of these buffs. So you can gain a fury buff of opponents that have their own fury buffs. You can gain a extra armor up buff of opponents that have their own armor up buffs, so on. But these buffs are not very potent, and most of them are not unique buffs, so it will not count towards Odin's SP2 burst damage. So his dupe is pretty useless, which is really nice, because you pull a 7-star Odin, he's useful fresh out the crystal, doesn't need to be duped, doesn't need any synergies to be good or anything. He's useful and worth ranking up straight out of the crystal. He's honestly probably one of the best 7-stars a progressing player can pull, because if you rank to Odin, you are guaranteed to get use out of him, especially if you're a progressing player. He will do so much for you in story content. He will help you complete Necropolis. He will even be good for you in Battlegrounds. He'll be good for you in War. Basically, what I'm getting at is that if you rank this guy up, I guarantee you will get at least some use out of this guy. One thing I do remember about Odin is I'm pretty sure he was the first ever champion I beat Barrowman with. This was all the way back in the Battlegrounds beta, and this was the OG Rich Get Richer meta. This was when I fell in love with Odin. I was using my rank 3 6-star. I was taking down Man-Things, and Man-Thing was, like Serpent is now, Man-Thing was one of the best defenders back in the Battlegrounds beta, and I nuked one in like 40 seconds with Odin. I ate an SP2 there. That one wasn't on purpose, I just suck. But anyway, like I was saying, I nuked a Man-Thing in 40 seconds in the Rich Get Richer meta. I was nuking Dooms, I was nuking Nick Furies, pretty much anything. Odin was just popping off for me, and I had a match against Barrow, nuked his rank 4 Guardian with my rank 3 Odin in under 30 seconds. He probably thought I was modding back then, because modders were going crazy at this time in Battlegrounds, but I wasn't. Odin is just that OP, and I'm pretty sure he is the first champion I beat Barrow with, which is a pretty cool story and a pretty good accolade for Odin if you ask me. Something that's pretty cool about Odin though is even if you're using a low rank Odin like a 6-star or even a 5-star Odin, you can still do insane damage because of how his SP2 works, with the damage scaling up based on your opponent's HP. So if for some reason you don't have a 6 or 7-star Odin, but you need him for a, let's say, Eternity of Pain type fight, you can honestly use a 5-star Odin and he will still put in work. If you want to see some challenge content with a 5-star, 4-star Odin, let me know in the comments, because I am down to do that. I might try and do like an Eternity of Pain type fight with a 4 or 5-star Odin, just for fun, just to show you all how OP even a low rank one can be. Thinking about it, I think there's a video like that on my channel already, because I swear one of the Spring of Sorrow fights, I think it was Nebula, I took with a 6-star rank 3 Odin, and it was a 800k health pool, and I still took that fight down in around 2 minutes, to give you an idea on how OP a low rank Odin can be. But we're moving on to some fully boosted gameplay here. Now, the funny thing is, you can only get one 200% cosmic power back boost a week, right? So I used mine, and then the game went down for maintenance, so I actually lost like half an hour of my 200% cosmic power back boost. Otherwise there would be more fully boosted gameplay, but I still managed to get a couple fights in there, luckily, before the boost fell off, and I don't want to delay this video any more than I already have. This video's been a very long time coming. Fight's over by the time I finish my sentence. No need to go for SB1s when you have the big power back boost. Odin doesn't synergize the best with power back boosts because the burst damage does not give you power back from it. So you need your SB2 to crit to get the most power back from these boosts. So it's not the most helpful for Odin, but if your SB2 does crit, it's very noticeable and very OP. This is Crucible Red Goblin here, no important nodes really. He's basically just going to gain a shit ton of Furies, which isn't too much of a problem considering Odin is one of the tankiest champs in game thanks to that massive armor up buff. Oh, and when we dex 10 times, Red Goblin's going to get power locked, which is nice for us. It doesn't help us out that much, but it is nice. It is a very nice bonus. We'll take it. But yeah, as you can see, we weren't critting on our SB2s, so the power back boost didn't come into too much play there. Next fight, we have this Crucible Ultron. Well, it's Labyrinth Ultron, and this guy's actually kind of annoying to fight. He's kind of underrated, but the only reason he's underrated is that he's locked as a 5-star for all of us players anyway. The only way to get him is from Labyrinth of Legends 100%, and he's only available as a 5-star, but he's honestly kind of annoying to fight. He evades you every 7 seconds. This could be really annoying on stun immune nodes or pretty much any nodes where you have to pay extra attentions to other stuff, because he's going to be evading you every 7 seconds, which it's very annoying. You know, if you've fought Labtron recently, he's kind of a pain in the ass. On top of that, his armor ups reduce your ability accuracy. I can't remember by how much, but each armor up reduces your ability accuracy by a certain percent. And this can really mess up a lot of champions. This can stop them from triggering their abilities, what makes them do damage. He is honestly pretty annoying on defense, and I think if he was released as a 7-star, he could honestly maybe be a viable defender. But that's it from the fights from me. I don't do war anymore, as most of you know. I am retired from war, but the homie Blunt Money came through, so big shout out to Blunt. He's sending over a few Odin fights for us to watch. I don't know much about the war tactic, so I'm not going to be too helpful here. I do know the tactic has evade and auto block, and the tactic champions bypass that. Odin could bypass that with his true strike anyway, so even if Odin wasn't a tactic champion, which I'm pretty sure he is, he would still smoke this fight. The quality may be a bit off because I got these videos sent to me through line. There's not much I could do about that, but the quality of the fights are so good. I just thought I had to show them, and I really wanted to include some war gameplay in here just so I could show that Odin truly is goated in any game mode. But this is the last fight of the video. I hope you enjoyed this. This is my biggest showcase yet. A lot of work goes into these videos, so if you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate it if you could remember to leave a like and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next video, which should hopefully be the Punisher 2099 showcase. That should be out a day or two after I dupe him. I'm really excited to do that. Hopefully it's going to be even bigger than this showcase.